Nobody is coming to save you. Not your friends, not your family, not some perfect moment. No one is stepping in to fix this. And deep down, you already know that. That's why it bothers you. Because every time things fall apart, every time you feel stuck, lost, behind, there's this quiet thought in the back of your mind. Someone will help. Something will change. But it doesn't. And it hasn't. So now you're left with something you've been avoiding. If no one is coming, what happens to you? Do you keep waiting? Keep scrolling, distracting yourself, pretending things will somehow get better on their own? Or do you finally face the truth that the life you're living right now isn't being held back by anyone else? It's being held in place by you. Because once you remove the idea of being saved, there's nothing left to hide behind. No excuses, no delays, no one else to blame. Just you and whatever you decide to do next. So don't look away from this. Sit with it. Because the moment you truly understand that no one is coming is the exact moment everything can change. Or nothing will. And that choice, that's where this actually begins. You've been waiting longer than you admit. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for clarity. Waiting until you feel ready. But nothing about your situation has actually changed. The only thing that's changed is how long you've been stuck in it. You keep telling yourself, this is temporary. That this version of you, this inconsistency, this delay, this lack of focus, it's not who you really are. But look at your actions. Look at your days. This is who you are right now. Not your intentions, not your plans, your patterns. And your patterns aren't moving you forward. They're keeping you exactly where you are. You start things, then stop. You plan things, then delay. You know what matters, and still ignore it. Not because you don't understand, but because you've made it optional. That's the truth. Everything important in your life right now is optional to you. Your goals, optional. Your discipline, optional. Your future, optional. And anything that's optional eventually gets ignored. So you fall into the same cycle. You feel the pressure. You tell yourself you'll change. Maybe you even take action for a day or two. And then you slip back into comfort, back into distraction, back into the same version of yourself you said you were done with. And each time that happens, you lose something. Not time, not opportunity. Trust. Trust in yourself. Because every time you say, I'll do it, and you don't, you prove something. You prove that your words don't mean anything. And once that becomes your pattern, you stop believing yourself. That's why even when you plan something now, there's doubt. Not because it's impossible, but because you've seen yourself quit too many times. You've trained your own mind to expect inconsistency. So now, even when you want to change, there's resistance. There's hesitation. There's that voice saying, you're not going to follow through anyway. And most of the time, it's right. Not because you're incapable, but because you haven't decided. You're still half in, still negotiating, still giving yourself space to escape. The moment it gets uncomfortable, and it always gets uncomfortable, that's the part you keep trying to avoid. The resistance, the effort, the moments where you don't feel like doing it. But that's exactly where change happens. Not when it feels easy, not when you're motivated, when it's inconvenient, when it's boring, when you'd rather do anything else, and you do it anyway. That's the line you haven't crossed yet. because right now, you're still choosing what feels better in the moment over what actually moves your life forward. And as long as that's your priority, nothing changes. Not permanently, not meaningfully. You'll keep getting small bursts of progress, followed by long stretches of nothing. And over time, that becomes your identity. Someone who starts, someone who plans, someone who talks about change, but never fully commits to it. That's the version of you that exists right now. Not because it has to, but because you've allowed it to continue. And if nothing interrupts that pattern, it won't stop. It'll just repeat. Again, and again, and again. Until one day, you realize you've been waiting for a version of yourself that was never forced to exist. At some point, you have to admit something you've been avoiding. This isn't happening to you. You're allowing it. Your situation, your habits, your results. They're not random. They're repeated. Built from small decisions you make every single day. Decisions that feel insignificant in the moment, but stack into something you can't ignore later. And right now, what you've built is a life you don't respect. Not because it's impossible to fix, but because you keep choosing not to fix it. You know what to do. That's not the issue. You've watched enough, heard enough, thought about it enough. You don't need more information. You need a different standard. Because information doesn't change behavior. Standards do. Right now, your standard allows skipping when you don't feel like it, delaying when it's inconvenient, quitting when it gets uncomfortable. And as long as those are allowed, they will happen. Every time. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. So look at your standards honestly. Not what you say they are, what they actually are. Because your life is showing you the truth. If you were serious, you'd act like it. Consistently. Not occasionally. But you don't. And that gap, between what you say you want and what you actually do, that's where your frustration comes from. You're not confused. You're conflicted. Part of you wants to change. The other part wants to stay comfortable. And right now, comfort is winning. Every time you hesitate, every time you delay, every time you choose the easier option, you're voting for that version of yourself. The one that avoids, the one that waits, the one that never fully commits. And votes stack. One decision doesn't define you, but repeated decisions do. So if you keep choosing comfort, you become someone who lives in it. Even if it costs you everything you say you want. That's the trade you're making. Whether you admit it or not. Comfort now, for regret later. And the dangerous part? It doesn't feel like a big decision. It feels small, harmless. Skipping today doesn't seem like much. Putting it off one more time doesn't feel serious. Choosing distraction over effort feels normal. But those small choices, they don't stay small. They build, they reinforce, they shape who you are. Until one day, you look at your life, and it reflects every shortcut you took, every delay, every excuse, every moment you knew what to do, and didn't do it. And there's no one to blame, because nobody was supposed to come save you. That was never part of the plan. You were always the one responsible for this. Not your past, not your situation, not your circumstances, you. And once you accept that, really accept it, everything changes. Because now, you lose the ability to hide. You can't blame timing. You can't blame motivation. You can't blame anyone else. It all comes back to your actions. And that's uncomfortable, because it means if nothing changes from here, it's not bad luck. It's you. That's the level of honesty most people avoid. They'd rather believe they're stuck, rather believe they need something more, rather believe they're missing something, because that's easier than admitting they're the reason they're not moving forward. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every delay becomes obvious. Every excuse sounds weak. Every distraction feels intentional. And now you have a choice. You either keep ignoring it and stay exactly where you are, or you start acting differently, even when it feels unnatural, especially when it feels unnatural, because that's the signal. If it feels uncomfortable, it means you're going against your current pattern. And that's exactly what needs to happen. Not once, not for a day, repeatedly, until the new behavior becomes normal. Until discipline isn't something you think about, it's something you do, without debate, without negotiation. That's the shift. And it doesn't come from motivation. It comes from deciding that the old version of you doesn't continue, no matter how easy it is to fall back, no matter how strong the urge is to quit, because those urges will come. The resistance will show up. The excuses will sound convincing. That voice will tell you, not today. Do it later. It doesn't matter that much. And if you listen, you already know what happens. Nothing. Same cycle. Same results. Same frustration. So stop pretending this is complicated. It's not complicated. It's uncomfortable. And you've been avoiding that discomfort while expecting a different life. That's the contradiction. You want change without changing what you do daily. That's not how this works. Something has to give. Either your comfort or your potential. Right now, your potential is losing, and it will keep losing until you decide otherwise. Not emotionally, not temporarily, decisively. Because once that decision is real, your actions follow. Not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency is what changes everything. Not intensity, not bursts of motivation. Consistency. Doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. That's where your future is decided. Not in big moments, not in dramatic changes, in small, repeated actions that you either do or avoid every single day. And from this point forward, you're aware of it. So whatever happens next is not accidental. It's chosen. You keep thinking you have time. That's the lie holding everything together. Time to fix it later. Time to restart. Time to become who you keep talking about. But look at your life honestly. You're not using the time you already have. So why would more time change anything? It won't. Because the problem was never time. It was you, your choices, your patterns, your willingness to stop when it gets uncomfortable. That's what's been consistent, not your effort. You don't have a discipline problem. You have a truth problem. You're not honest about what you're doing. You say you're trying, but your actions say you're avoiding. You say you want more, but your behavior says you're fine with less. You say you're serious, but your consistency says you're not. And that contradiction, that gap between what you say and what you do, that's where your identity's breaking. Because you can't respect yourself if your actions don't match your words. And you feel that every time you delay, every time you skip, every time you know what to do. and don't do it. That feeling, that slight frustration, that quiet disappointment, that's you losing trust in yourself, piece by piece. And once that trust is gone, you don't just struggle to succeed. You struggle to even start, because deep down, you don't believe you'll follow through anyway. So you hesitate, you overthink, you wait, not because you're stuck, but because you've trained yourself to expect failure. And the worst part? You did that. Not in one big decision, but in hundreds of small ones. Every time you chose easy over necessary. Every time you chose comfort over progress. Every time you chose distraction over discipline. You built this version of yourself, and now you're living with it. So stop asking, why am I like this? You already know why. The real question is, why are you still okay with it? Because right now, you are. If you weren't, you'd act differently. Not tomorrow. Not eventually. Now. That's the truth you keep avoiding. You don't change when something is wrong. You change when you refuse to tolerate it. And you haven't reached that point yet. You still tolerate this version of yourself. You tolerate wasted time. You tolerate inconsistency. You tolerate knowing better and doing nothing. So it continues. Not because it has to, but because you allow it to. That's your control. That's your responsibility. And also, that's your way out. Because if you created this pattern, you can break it. But not by thinking. Not by planning. Not by watching more content like this. By acting. In moments where you usually don't. That's where your entire life shifts. Not in comfort, not in clarity, in resistance. Right when your mind says, skip it. Not now. It doesn't matter. That's the moment. And every time you lose that moment, you reinforce the same identity. The one that avoids, the one that delays, the one that never fully commits. So don't act surprised when nothing changes. You're repeating the same inputs. You're getting the same outputs. That's not bad luck. That's alignment. Your actions are perfectly aligned with the life you're living. If you want a different life, you need different actions. Consistently. Not once. Not when you feel like it. Every time it matters. And right now, it matters more than you admit. Because every day you stay like this, you're not staying still. You're falling behind. Not just compared to others, compared to your own potential. The version of you that could have existed if you actually followed through. That version is getting further away. Not because it's impossible, but because you're not moving toward it. And time is moving anyway. So the gap grows until eventually it feels unreachable. And then you tell yourself, it's too late. But it's not too late. You just made it harder by waiting longer. That's the cost. Every delay doesn't just pause your progress. It increases the effort required to fix it later. And you're stacking that cost daily. So stop pretending you're neutral. You're either building something or you're breaking it. Every action counts. Every decision matters. And right now, most of yours are working against you. That's the reality. Not dramatic, not emotional, just accurate. And you can keep ignoring it. You can close this, go back to your habits, and continue exactly as you were. No one will stop you, because nobody is coming to save you. Not from your situation, not from your habits, not from yourself. So this is it. Not a motivational moment. Not a turning point unless you make it one. just a clear line. You either keep being this person or you don't. No transition, no slow shift. A decision. And whatever you choose, you'll prove it. Not with words, with what you do next. This is where it stops. Not the video, the excuses. Because at this point, there's nothing left to add. You've seen it, you've felt it, you've recognized yourself in it. So if you still walk away from this and do nothing, understand what that means. It means this is who you've chosen to be, not temporarily, not accidentally, deliberately, because you don't stay the same by mistake. You stay the same by repetition. And repetition is a choice. Every single time. You chose the distractions. You chose the delays. You chose to ignore what mattered. Not once. Repeatedly. So stop acting like this is happening to you. It's not. You're participating in it. Actively. Daily. And if that doesn't sit right with you, good. It's not supposed to. Because that discomfort, that pressure, that frustration you feel right now, that's the truth finally catching up to you. Not the version you tell yourself. The real one. The one built from your actions. And right now, that version isn't where you want it to be. But here's the part you keep avoiding. It's also exactly where your actions have taken you. Nothing more. Nothing less. No unfairness. No mystery. Just results. So if you want different results, you don't need a new plan. You don't need a new mindset. You don't need more time. You need to stop being this person completely. Not slightly better. Not trying harder. Done. Done negotiating. Done delaying. Done giving yourself ways out. Because every one more time you allow becomes 10 more. Every "I'll start tomorrow" becomes another wasted week. Every moment you hesitate becomes another reason you stay the same. So cut it. Right here. Not after this video. Not when you feel ready. Now. Because if it's not now, you already know what happens. You go back. Back to the same routine. Back to the same habits. Back to the same version of yourself. You just spent all this time recognizing, and nothing changes. Again? And the next time you hear something like this, you'll feel it less. Because repetition doesn't just build habits. It builds numbness. You get used to hearing the truth and ignoring it until it stops affecting you at all. And once that happens, change becomes even harder. Because now, you don't just lack action, you lack reaction. So don't let this become another moment. That fades away. Don't let this be something you agree with and then forget. Because that's what you've done before. You've felt this before. You've had moments where everything felt clear, where you said, "This is it. This time I change." And then you didn't. So prove this isn't that moment again. Not to anyone else. To yourself. Because right now, you're at the only point that matters. Awareness. You see the pattern. You see the problem. You see your role in it. And from here, there are only two paths. You either act or you don't. There is no third option. And whichever one you choose, you'll reinforce it. If you act, you start becoming someone different. If you don't, you confirm everything you just heard. You confirm that you're still the same, still avoiding, still waiting, still not serious. And that becomes your identity. Not because someone gave it to you, because you proved it. So don't ask what to do next. You already know. Don't wait for motivation. You don't need it. Don't look for another video. This was enough, more than enough. Now it's just execution. Simple, not easy, but simple. Do what you've been avoiding. Do it when you don't feel like it. Do it without thinking about it too much. And keep doing it, even when there's no reward yet. That's it. That's the entire difference between who you are right now and who you keep thinking about becoming. There's no gap in knowledge, no missing secret, just a gap in action. And that gap is completely under your control. Oh, so this is where it ends. No more thinking, no more planning, no more waiting, just a decision. And whatever you do after this, that's the truth. Not your intentions, not your words, your actions. Because in the end, that's all that ever counted.